we're going to look at creating some quantitative data graphs. So again, quantitative data as opposed to qualitative data is numbers. And the way that you can really think about it, because sometimes numbers are qualitative, such as social security numbers and phone numbers. But you can always ask yourself, if I took the average of this information, would that number make sense? Like, for example, the addresses of houses on a street, like the number of the house on a street. If we average all the numbers of houses on a street, that doesn't give us any information that makes sense. Just like averaging social security numbers wouldn't give us any information that makes any sense. So this is quantitative data, exam scores. I have some exam scores here. And with these exam scores, I want to make a graphical representation called a stem and leaf plot. Now, the way that a stem and leaf plot works is it's not built into Excel. We have to do this manually. But it's going to be easiest if we sort our data from smallest to biggest. It's going to be easier to do this manually. So I highlighted my data without the exam scores in there. And I'm going to sort in my home ribbon. There should be sort and filter. And I'm going to go from smallest to largest. And now it's sorted. So the way that a stem and leaf plot works is we're going to put the stem, these are all 2-digit numbers, so the stem is going to be the tens place, and the leaf is going to be the ones place. So we're going to put all the stems, all our 40s will go here, all our 50s will go here, all our 60s go here. There are no 70s, but we're still going to put a placeholder for the 7s. Our 80s, our 90s, and if we had 100s, we would put a 10 here because our stem is always going to be everything except for the last digit of the number. So now in each cell, I'm actually going to put the leaf for each number. So we have a 45, we have a 56, and a 58. We have a 67, 8. We had no 70s, but we have an 85, we have an 88, we have an 89. And remember, enter or return brings you down. So when I hit return, it's going to bring me down. Tab is going to bring me to the right. I have a 90, a 95, a 95, a 95, and another 95. And I'm going to list each duplicate, the number of times it shows up. Because now the number of digits is going to show us the distribution of this data, and we'll talk more about what the distribution means and how we describe it later. But to make this look a little nicer, I'm going to highlight all of these cells here, and I'm going to come up here to where I can resize it. And if I just double click, it's going to get rid of all the empty space in these cells. Now to make this look like a stem and leaf plot, I'm going to highlight my data and I'm going to do some formatting. So up here I can fill the cells with a fill color. I'm going to use white. Okay. And then in between the stem and the leaf, I'm going to highlight these two columns and I want to put some borders. So I want maybe I don't want to highlight the middle because I don't want all the inside. So I'm going to highlight right to the right of like the first leaf. And I can do a left border there. And you can see there's a nice line there now. So this is typically what a stem and leaf plot looks like. I'm going to zoom in on that. You could put a box around the whole thing if you wanted to. And then I would just make sure that you had some sort of key for people to know what numbers these were. Because this is ambiguous. This could be a 45, but it could also be a 4.5. And so we just want to make sure that we have a key, and the key is going to be that 4.5 equals 45. And all I did there was below the delete key, there's a / and also just a vertical line. So I just shift / to get this vertical line. This is all text. Okay. And I could also make the background there transparent. I can highlight these two and get rid of the empty space there. So now we have our stem and leaf plot. There's our stem and leaf plot for our data. And it gives us just more organization. Now I can see, okay, most people got in the 90s and 80s. There were some people that didn't do as well. Okay, and when we talk about skewed distributions, this would definitely be a skewed distribution. All right, so now let's move on to our box and whisker plot. So box and whisker plot is also quantitative. And if we wanted to create a box and whisker plot, this is built in right to Excel. And we'll do another one of these in the next video, but I'm just going to use the same exam score data, and I'm going to insert. I'm going to go to my statistics, and I'm going to choose box and whisker plot. And you can see it creates a box and whisker plot for me. This one does not have all of the features that I normally would expect in a box and whisker plot. So I'm going to format this a little bit to help. Notice we have all this empty space down here, but this doesn't look like it goes any lower than 45. We know that value's in there. So I can double click on this border and I get some options here. It might bring you right to the formatting. You want the columns, and then you can change your minimum. So I'm going to change it to 40, and this looks a little bit better. I don't need a horizontal label, but I would like a vertical label on my box and whisker plot. So again, I'm going to go to add chart elements. I'm going to go to axis title. I want a vertical. And this right here is going to be exam scores. The title itself, I could give more specific. This could be exam scores for statistics. If I knew that information, I would put it there. And then I can also add some data labels. So data labels, I like it to the right. And basically it's telling me all the extra stuff. Now there's two 95s because the 95 is both the maximum and what's called the third quartile. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. And I'll show you what an actual box and whisker plot normally looks like. It normally has a box and two whiskers, one on the low end and one on the high end. And I'll tell you what each of those whiskers represents. So this top whisker here is actually just a duplicate because the third or 75th percentile and the maximum are actually the same values. So that is some quantitative graphs. We had our stem and leaf plot and our box and whisker plot. In the next video, we'll talk about histograms, and we'll do a couple more box and whisker plots and histograms together in that video.